Hello, welcome to the Art of Renovation Live. I'm your host, Paul Foster from Contact Renovations and Custom Homes. This week's topic is countertops. We had technical issues last week, so we're reshooting this week. So hopefully we'll get through it today without too many glitches. Our guest this week is Isha Ribeiro from Urban Granite. And we're going to talk about all things relating to countertops, but specifically stone products, the difference between them, and some new technology that's out there. If you're a homeowner, you're planning a countertop replacement, we're going to guide you through a few things to be careful about before you go and pick your top and call someone to install them. There's lots of little landmines hidden out there in the in regards to replacing your tops if you're not aware of them. So hopefully today we can address some of those. We have a great giveaway item donated by Urban Granite. We've got a limestone charcuterie board and a great bottle of red wine. Here's the bottle of red wine. I'd love to keep this one, but away we go. I won't grab the charcuterie board because it's a little heavy. But anyhow, so I'll introduce Isha. So she's been a sales manager at Urban Granite for the last 5 years or so. She's been 11 years in the stone industry. Her passion for stone is unmatched. This passion has made her the go-to trade partner for custom countertop projects in general. So I met with her the other day. She's dropped by to drop off the charcuterie board, and she's so passionate about what she does. So it was really exciting to chat with her. So we'll bring her into the show here. And so give her a sec here. I'm going to send us some waves up to some people that are here for the show today. Aisha!
Hey, thanks for having me, Paul. Hello, and hello, everyone.
Welcome back.
Yeah.
Hopefully
it's great to be back so soon.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, so countertops, I think, like I mentioned, let's start with kind of the process, what to look out for, and kind of if someone's considering replacing their top.
Yeah.
Let's talk a bit about the steps to consider. Before we do that, yes, I did mention the giveaway. We should talk about how they can win it. So we're going to talk a bit about quartz versus granite during the show today. And the answer, a skill testing question, is which is the harder surface of the two, quartz or granite? Okay, so if you're interested in winning the charcuterie board, just enter the answer in the comments, and then we'll do a random draw at the end of the show. And you can come by later on and pick it up from my office. All right?
Good luck.
All right. I'm going to just look for an image of it here so I can post it in the background for 1 sec. So I guess I should talk us through kind of what to consider when replacing your tops. And let's assume someone's got, for now, a laminate top and they want to upgrade to quartz or granite.
Okay, yeah. So if someone wants to upgrade to quartz or granite, we provide the stone countertop for you. So we would do a template, get the exact measurements that we're going to then fabricate the stone for you and install it for you. So what we provide is our products, which is the stone. So what you need to do to prepare for us is actually remove your existing laminate counters, and you also need to remove your existing sinks and taps, which means as well disconnecting your plumbing, and then after our install you're going to need to reconnect your plumbing. So one thing I'd like to mention is we can provide the service where we'll remove your laminate counters for you. The only thing to keep in mind is we are not a cabinet company. We're not a plumbing company. So when you remove your laminate counters, sometimes you uncover some more work that may need to be done, like if your cabinets aren't totally level, or what's very common, actually, people don't realize is laminate counters aren't the exact same thickness as our stone slabs. So the most common thickness for a stone slab for a kitchen or bathroom, it's 3 centimeters thick, which is an inch and a quarter. Laminate counters are not ever an inch and a quarter. They're actually an inch and a half. Most common, they're an inch and a half with most houses that are like 5 to 10 years old, let's say. But older houses, they actually are often even 3/4 of an inch. And then they're 3/4 of an inch, and then it drops down at the front only. that's not the full thickness of the slab. So it can be a bit more work that we'll direct you and tell you exactly what you need to do to prepare for us. So I know we'll keep talking about that, but this picture that you pulled up, Paul, that's one of your projects, hey?
It's just a reference that I pulled from online that kind of shows that gap that would be visible when increasing or changing from laminate, or may be visible, depends on how it was all prepped beforehand.
Yeah, exactly. So what I can tell is happening in this picture is the laminate counter that would have been there before this stone slab that you see was 1.5 inches. So then if the granite company then came to install 1.25 inch slab, once that's like against your back wall, and if they're keeping the existing tile, there's going to be a 1/4 inch gap. And that's not attractive. Sorry. That's not attractive to have a big gap at the back, right? So there's a couple ways that we can fix that as a granite fabricator, just to help you kind of get the job done in ways that are suitable to many people. So what we're seeing here is we put some, like a granite company put some shims under the counter to lift the stone up a bit. So when you're standing in most angles, it looks great. However, like staring dead on or pretty far back, you'll see a gap at the front, because although we've lifted the stone, so where it meets the tile, it perfectly butts up together. At the front, there's still going to be that 1/4 inch gap, you know? So that's something that we can do. And fine, and everything still looks great. However, I know if you had a contractor, you guys have some better fixes for that, right, Paul? Where it would just look a lot more custom and you wouldn't have to worry about the gap at the front.
I think the idea is generally you want that gap to disappear. You don't want to have any attention, brought to it. So we would try to put down a piece of molding around that matches the color of the cabinetry. And that would be one way to address it if you have to add a shim. You know what, I'm hearing this echo again. I'm nervous about what's going to happen, but we'll continue and see what goes on here with our technical issues. Anyway, so when you're considering replacing your top, if you're going to save your backsplash, you're kind of married to the height of your existing top. So keep that in mind when you're replacing your countertop.
Definitely.
Not all countertop companies will actually, like the installers might not address it for you, so you'll have to deal with that after the fact. So just kind of buyer beware.
Yeah, obviously it's easier, like in these images where we saw the gap at the front, if those homes, they were getting new tile backsplash, that wouldn't be necessary because the old laminate comes off, our new counter goes on, and then you build the tile at the back, right? So it would perfectly butt together. It's always a more custom look when you do the counter before the tile, but a lot of people don't realize that, and they're trying to save this beautiful tile that they have, and that's when it gets trickier, like the situation we just talked about.
Yeah, and you can see in the background here, this is it's kind of a close-up here, but that's a backsplash tile. You can see the gap there from the new tops and installed. Replacing your countertops while saving your backsplash can be tricky because you can end up with, there can be a silicone line across there. There can be some chipping on the tile. And sometimes the tile installers don't do a fantastic job of finishing that bottom edge. So keep that in mind when you're planning to replace your your countertop, that your backsplash might need to go with it.
Yeah, good point.
Okay. Well, I think other than that, like if you think about when someone comes in to replace your top, you're going to have plumbing fixtures to remove.
Yeah.
You might have appliances to remove as well. So that's something that you might need to have a plumber come in and deal with, especially if you have to get rid of get a gas range out of the way or a gas cooktop, for example. Someone has to disconnect that.
Something I'd love to point out too is I've had customers not realize that it's not as simple for the plumbing as just shutting on and shutting off the the plumbing so that you can remove your sink, because most of the time you've got a laminate counter with a top mount sink, and now when you add in an undermount sink, the previous plumbing that you had, it doesn't fit because the sink is now sitting lower, like underneath the counter, so it's sitting lower, so you actually need new plumbing connects underneath. And let's say you had like you're getting a different size sink now too, the drains will be just shifted like maybe a little further apart, or like just a little off of exactly where they were before, and just even by a quarter of an inch and half an inch, and you're going to need new plumbing for that too. So it's definitely best to have a professional, unless you know how to handle those situations I just mentioned. Yeah, you need new plumbing as well to connect your undermount sinks in your vanity or your kitchen. Yeah.
Absolutely. I had a question from Alyssa. She's asking if she can reuse her sink when she replaces her countertop.
Yeah, that's possible. So one thing to keep in mind, if you have a top mount sink, clients often ask, hey, can't you just undermount my sink for me? And in the end, it's never, and it doesn't go as well to undermount a top mount sink. The quality of that undermounting, it's just not as good as workmanship as we'd like to provide. So we do like provide through our plumbing connections, and like a contractor like Paul, like a lot of us are well connected with plumbers in the city, and we can get you a new undermount sink for, like $250 to $300. So it might be worth just spending a little bit extra to get a new sink if you're trying to undermount it. But if you already have an undermount sink and you want to keep it undermounted and it's stainless steel, that's possible. Like those usually come off no problem. If it was certain materials like granite, like those granite sinks, those sinks always break when we remove them. So that wouldn't be something that you could easily keep and reuse. But like your porcelain vanity sinks, quite often clients also want to keep it and reuse it. So we can do that. We can template the sink itself and make sure the cutout perfectly matches the sink that you already had. That's definitely doable.
Absolutely. One thing to keep in mind,
like
though,
vanity sinks might be around $70. If you come to places like us, where we have all these plumbing connections.
Yeah, and one thing to consider too, if you plan to reuse your sink or your faucet, keep in mind that they probably look great against your old countertop or maybe against your old backsplash. And often what we find is when we establish something and reuse it, often it doesn't look that good against the new surface anymore. So just be careful about it. Be honest with yourself. It might make more sense to spend a few $100 on a new sink now, then go through the process of having it installed, only to be dissatisfied, and you have to pick another sink that matches that hole they've cut for it now too, right? So
yeah, that's very difficult.
So I don't usually recommend that we reuse anything like your sink, unless your faucet's relatively new. That's an easy change, but reusing your sink, I rarely feel that it's worth it.
Yeah, it's not as common, but you never know. Like maybe you personally recently bought a new awesome sink or something. It's definitely doable, but exactly like what Paul said, suddenly against a brand new material like your counter, it might look older, so yeah, something to keep in mind for your style.
Very true. Let's talk about the giveaway item again here quickly.
Yes.
So we have this lovely limestone charcuterie board and a bottle of red wine that Urban Grant has donated for the giveaway item today. So we're going to start talking next about quartz versus granite. And the question today is, which of those two products is harder? A harder surface. Okay, so put your answer in the comments, and then you'll be entered into the draw for this this lovely board and wine combo. Okay, so should we move on then into the quartz and granite conversation?
Sounds good.
Okay, so I guess we can talk. I'll pull up that hardness scale image, and we can talk a bit about that now to give everyone an answer to the question, and then we'll go from there. My photos got all shuffled again here, which is
I'm seeing a lot of the right answer already in the comments. Some very educated designer people out there. Yeah, so I'd love to show this image to people. This is the Mohs hardness scale. So scientifically, this is how we measure how scratch resistant one surface is compared to another surface. So, or a mineral is basically. So looking on here, to let everyone know, granite is a 6, where the feldspar mineral is. Granite's very heavily concentrated with feldspar. And quartz, when we refer to quartz, we're talking about an engineered product, engineered quartz, and they're using the quartz mineral to make that product, and quartz is a 7. So on this scale, like a 7, that's more scratch resistant than your granite, which is a 6. One thing to keep in mind is some common household items like knives and glass, they measure at about a 5 on the scale. So your granite or your quartz would be very scratch resistant to knives and glass, and iron actually measures between a 4 and a 5 on this scale. So like your iron pots that you might be sliding around your kitchen, either granite or quartz would both be very scratch resistant to that. So I like to point that out just because although quartz is definitely measures more scratch resistance, it's a harder surface. Your granite is still very, very hard to scratch with everyday common household items. So yeah, that's one thing based on scratch resistant. There's many other reasons why quartz and granite are different, and I'd love to talk about them. And really, it's just there's something for everyone, right? Mm-hmm. So there isn't a right option or a wrong option. Just keep in mind it's what's right for you.
Absolutely. And I think like there's a bit of care and maintenance difference between the two of them, right? A granite will require some sealing, I guess depending on your suggested maintenance schedule, but I would think annually someone should probably seal their granite top.
Yeah, and that's what we recommend definitely is sealing with a liquid sealer once a year. It's just a nice rule of thumb to make sure that you're taking care of your countertops. Although nowadays you can buy a sealer plus cleaner spray. We actually sell one. It's called a Revitalizer spray. Great quality, around $15. And if you use it like once a week or every other week on your granite, typically you can really prolong needing to do your sealer like by years. So that's the Revitalizer spray. Awesome. I know one thing to keep in mind, every granite actually can perform differently. So that's why we say that seal one time a year. Like you should be sealing your counters or using a spray like this weekly. We know from our experience here at Urban that some granites, you can go many, many years without needing to do your sealer and you're fine. Like you're not getting water spots. It's still very stain resistant. We find that with a lot of like really black granites. And then there's some granites that before 1 year comes up, you're noticing that you need to seal again already. So how you can tell that it's time to do your sealer is if you drop water on your counter, you wipe it away, and you have a spot now where the water was, but that spot eventually disappears in like 10, 15 minutes. It disappears because it's evaporating. It evaporates away. When you're getting water spots like that, you know it's time to do your sealer again. So everyone does have different wear and tear in their kitchen. And then because granite's a natural product from the earth, from many different areas all over the earth, there's different minerals, like a different mineral consistency in every slab. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. When we're selling you a natural stone slab, we can let you know, like, hey, like you can ask us, how do you think this one performs? And most of the time we'll have really good history with all the stones, and we can let you know, this one's great, you know, like you typically no issues, but some will let you know, yeah, you're typically with this stone, you'll have to seal it maybe twice a year even. Mm-hmm. So either way, it's nice that that spray cleaner is so handy that you could just use weekly or bi-weekly and just keep it maintained and not have to do the full sealer application. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I would say that
sealer. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think for people like when you're going to pick between, and I'm just going to pick on quartz and granite a bit here because they're the most common two that we install typically now.
Okay.
It's a matter of you being sure what you're prepared to do. If you're not someone who's going to maintain the countertop, then you probably shouldn't pick a natural stone. I think at that point you should go with quartz, right? Because if you don't care for it, it's not going to perform well, and eventually it won't look as good as it could, and then so just be aware of that. Like we used to see a lot of marble countertops out in the marketplace, and I don't recommend marble often now because it's so soft and it requires a lot more care. So it's you have to know how you're going to use it. If you're a chef and you're constantly cooking and you're sliding stuff across your countertop, and well, you're not using your cutting board, you're cutting on the top. Well, that's other maintenance issues there too. But
Yeah. So very true. And like on that Mohs hardness scale that we looked at, marble's only a 3. So if you can imagine, it's not scratch resistant to your knives in any way, glass, pots, things like that, right? So to go from a 3 where marble is to a 6 where granite is, that's quite a difference. To go from a 6 to a 7 between granite and quartz, not a dramatic difference, especially when you know everything is lower than a 6. That's your common household items. And you know what's something funny is that actually chefs do typically really like natural stone. It's very popular for chefs to even like soapstone, which can scratch really easy, but it's an antibacterial stone naturally, or marble, because it's such a flat, smooth surface. Oh, I love that photo you just put up. That's a marble quarry, actually. So yeah, something to keep in mind if you're with quartz, with engineered quartz, it's hard to scratch. It's really hard to scratch, but you're still not supposed to cut right on your counters. If you do end up with a scratch, that is very, very hard to fix. And also, basically, the manufacturer's warranties don't cover you cutting on your counters. Like in the warranties, they say, hey, do not cut directly on your counter. Use a cutting board, So you might be fine most of the time, but you might get a scratch. And then if you do get a scratch, that's not fixable, really. But with granite, with natural stone, you can actually refinish the surface. So if you end up over, years of like cutting on your counters, abusing your counters, whatever, a lot of wear and tear, that can actually be totally refinished again to look brand new. It's a service, like it's a lengthy service. Like you'd have to have somebody come in, quarantine the area because it's very like dusty, dirty work, take them a whole day maybe if they're doing all your counters, but it could look brand new again, and that service would be much cheaper than getting brand new counters all of a sudden. So it's kind of like with a hardwood floor. You don't refinish your hardwood floor every year. You do that maybe every 20 years, With granite, it's doable. Or if you had just one big scratch that you needed fixed or addressed, these things are fixable and doable over and over and over again forever. So a granite counter could technically last hundreds of years, where a quartz, it's stronger, but if that damage happens, then it's not fixable. And I did see a question in the comments if it's safe to put a hot pot on granite.
Right.
And a really good thing about that is, first of all, it's not safe to put a hot pot on quartz, engineered quartz. The warranty won't cover that. Because quartz has resin in the mix. It's the binding agent in the quartz slab, and that resin will discolor and burn. With granite, you could put your hot pot on there, and it'd be very rare to get damage. I see you saying, Angie Hutchison, in your question that you're afraid to do that with your granite. It's a rule of thumb that we say you still shouldn't put your hot pot right on your granite counter, only because if there happens to be in that one spot where you put your hot pot, like a fissure within the slab, that you can't see maybe even on top, but just within the slab, like a weakness, the direct heat on that one spot could cause that fissure to pop open, and maybe you suddenly have a crack or a chip on the surface. So that's what is we're told. I've been in the industry for 11 years and I've never ever had a client have that problem. And I've had many clients admit to me all the time that they put their hot pot right on the counter. So it's up to you if you want to take that risk or not. If you ended up with like a crack or, you know, a chip on the surface, that's fixable. With quartz, with engineered quartz, if you put your hot pot right on the surface, you get a burn. That's not fixable. There's no way to fix that. And that's unfortunately something that I've seen clients do many times, not many, but a handful of very unfortunate times over the past 11 years I've been in the industry. So, and then this picture that you're showing right now, Paul, that's a new product called dekton. So it's not quartz, it's not granite, it's an engineered product, just engineered, so similar to quartz in the fact that it's engineered, but it doesn't have resin in the mix, which actually makes it a lot stronger than quartz or granite. You can put your hot pot right on it. You'd never get any damage. And if you happens to get damage, which we've never seen happen, the warranty would actually cover and back that up. They advertise it like in this image here, hey, you can put your hot pot right on the counter. So dekton's a newer material in our market. We've been working with it for about 5 years, but it still seems brand new to most people. Very different material, but one beautiful thing about it is that you can put your hot pot right on it. You can take a blowtorch to it. You're not going to damage it. So yeah.
It's a product I haven't used yet on any of our projects, and I think like most clients, when they go into select their countertops now from the showroom, I think most people are accustomed to, you know, quartz, granite, marble. Maybe they know a quartzite product, but I think the dekton's something that, you know, should get some more traction soon as people learn a bit more about it. And the pricing's come down a bit on the product too, so it's not cost prohibitive at this stage. But I'm trying to find yet an awesome picture you provided that had the dekton and it showed the gas burners cut right into the countertop, and I can't find the image. It got scrambled on the phone here, so it's too bad. But
yeah, that heat resistance means you can do a lot more with dekton. So some people don't realize that you can't install engineered quartz. You can't put quartz outside. Like that should not be your barbecue counter or your patio tables or anything like that, because the UV light will fade quartz. It's actually, the warranty doesn't cover quartz to be outdoors. But with dekton, because there's no resin, you can install it outdoors. We're doing it for beautiful outdoor kitchens all the time now. And also for your fireplace, we've actually seen many designers specify quartz to go as your fireplace hearth, your fireplace mantle, your fireplace surround. And we have to point out to them, that's not a great idea. First of all, you're voiding the warranty. Quartz isn't safe for a fireplace application because the heat will burn the resin. So you could get that, those slabs could warp, they could discolor, they could crack over time. But dekton, it can be around your fireplace. So besides the fact that it's such a durable counter in your kitchen, there's more applications that you can do with it too, which makes it really, really special. At Urban, we were the very first ones fabricating dekton in Edmonton. So 5 years ago, for like about a full year and a half, nobody else was fabricating it. So we were telling everyone about it. And they were always hearing about it first, you know, from us. Now, 5 years later, many of our competitors are working with it too. And we're seeing like a huge splash with the colors in the design market. And people are just falling in love with all the new colors. So one benefit to working with us, Paul, that you get is, and anybody else out there, is that we price dekton very competitively. Like it starts in our level 2 price point, which is just one step up from where quartz starts. So years ago, we had to price it much higher until our skill level got to where it is now, where it doesn't slow down our shop to work with it. So, and also we get amazing slab prices because of our long-standing relationship with the supplier. So designers lately are like, oh my gosh, I had no idea, like it's like the same price as my quartz quote was, or oh my gosh, this dekton color was cheaper than this other quartz color that I quoted. So just something for you guys to keep in mind, that don't be shy of like looking at it and quoting it now if you're working with us, especially, just because we've really been able to drive the price down on that, which is very new. Over just the past year, we're pricing it as affordable as we are. Yeah.
Good to know, certainly. I would say let's talk a bit about the pricing between quartz and granite. And it's really like we talk about level 1, 2, 3. I kind of call it good, better, best, or you can talk about getting into exotics. But like if you look at a natural stone product, I'll bring back this quarry image again. Now, this is a marble quarry, but like in a quarry, this is where your natural stone product comes from, right? They're cutting giant slabs from the earth. And that's one step. You think about where that quarry is. What's the price tag on shipping to your local marketplace, right? So there's things that will factor into what establishes pricing for the different products, how rare it is, how you get something that's coming out of, I don't know, are there any quarries in Canada producing their own natural stones?
Yeah, there's a few quarries in Canada that do their own natural stones. And you know, it's funny because quarries are all over the world. What feels local is pretty far away. So for us, like there's actually many quarries of granite and marble in the US as well. And that's almost like saying, hey, it's local, it's in our backyard if it's in the US, because that is just so close compared to where most quarries are. So there's like tons of marble quarries in Italy, and in Brazil there's so many quartzite and granite quarries, and there's granite quarries all over the world like India, Africa. And this picture is great to show you what any natural stone like extracting quarry looks like. They basically take huge blocks out of the earth, and then they have to ship that block to their manufacturing plant, which might be in another country from where they extracted it. You know, for example, there's some beautiful stones. This one called labradorite lemurian that's for a long time was extracted here in Canada, but you'd be buying it from a supplier in Brazil, because they just are a quarry company and they own quarries all over, and they always have to ship it back to their manufacturing plant, where then they slice those blocks into the slabs. It goes through their production line where they polish the slabs to give us the finish, right? And then it gets shipped here. So because that's such an extensive process, it's something we have local warehouses who do all of the communicating with all these quarries for us. They control the prices, and a lot of it is based on how rare the stone is. That's where the price comes from. So if it's a color that's all over the earth, like they have tons, it's a huge quarry, they're not going to run out of it. Typically, those colors are a lot cheaper than other colors, which maybe are more rare. They're not found as heavily in the earth or in the quarry. And also some stones, just to pull out of the earth, might be more difficult than others, just based on how strong they are, right? So there's many things that go into the pricing, which is really like something that I don't deal with, like how they come up with the pricing. But typically, like the picture that, Paul, you're showing right now, that's a beautiful granite called Copacabana. And it's so pretty. And often some of these colors that look really rare, like you haven't seen it everywhere before, those are usually like the ones that are a bit more expensive than your entry-level colors. Your entry-level standard granites, they start at the same price as your entry-level standard quartz colors. With granite, it goes up. We have a scale where we go level 1 to 5, 1 being the cheapest, 5 being the most expensive. We use that scale for quartz, dekton, granite, all the materials we work for. But with granite, you can go above that level 5, and you can keep going. So some stones are just so rare, like where the whole slab is pretty much like a gem, you know, or quartzites, which are really, really hard. Natural stone, the whole slab is the quartzite mineral, and they're beautiful. Some of them can be backlit, they're translucent, they look like a gem, you know, and these slabs can be like triple, quadruple.
We just did a quartzite countertop in a penthouse we did last year, and it was a beautiful 10-foot island And unfortunately, like they went, like just another good example about this image in the background is you can go to the showroom and you can pick your actual slab. So my clients, we went to the showroom, we picked the slab they wanted. It was quartzite, so that's a natural stone, and it's very unique. When you pick the slab, you're the only person who has that slab. It's not like a quartz product where it's engineered and produced with a certain pattern. So we picked this beautiful quartzite slab. It was very expensive, only to find out, because they're in the penthouse, we couldn't fit it in the elevator. The only way to get it up was by getting a crane to crane it to the top of the penthouse, which was cost prohibitive. So we had to cut this beautiful slab in half. But thankfully, our fabricators, our installers were really talented with their seams, and it was hardly visible. So one thing to consider, like sometimes logistically, think about the size of the slab you require. And while we're on this topic about picking your slab, I have a series of photos that you sent me I want to show here. So when you pick your slab, so you say you've gone through the process of picking a beautiful slab that you love. And one thing that you'll get from a good fabricator like Urban Granite is you'll be able to lay out exactly how that slab is going to be used. And you can then dictate where the seams are going to be. If you're going to be going with waterfall edges, you can book match properly on the veining. So you can get really good use of the slab to put a high profile piece of that veining or that pattern where you want it. So here's an image of this slab that they've laid out. And then you can see here it is. Well, the picture cropped poorly, but there it is kind of after it's done. And you can see that's a waterfall edge closest to the bottom of the frame. And you can see how that lines up beautifully. And, you know, it's something that a good fabricator will do that for you. And a bad fabricator will do this for you.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Absolutely.
At that point, they're taking it and they're just trying to be efficient within use of their slab, maybe to make more money on the install. Maybe they don't understand or care. But it's something that if this happened to me on one of my projects, there would be our expectations would not be met and it would be a problem. So if you're hiring someone in advance, you need to hire a professional who can think this through to make sure that you go and spend all this money on your slab and your countertop product only to see that in install, it's not destroyed, but it certainly doesn't look nearly as beautiful as when you see something that's been done properly and you see that nice book. It's not book matching. That's more with wood grains, I guess. But
yeah, we do call it book matching when it like perfectly like butterflies. It's like a mirror image at the seam. Otherwise, we're always looking at that, like to make sure that the pattern goes from one piece to the other. It might even just be when you're standing back and looking at the whole kitchen and you've got the piece on one side of the stove, then the other side of the stove, and maybe it wraps into an L, plus you've got the island. When you look at that whole kitchen, the grains should be running all in the same direction, Depending on the slab, the color that you pick, that's harder to pull off. And we'll point that out to you at the quoting phase, There's a few that are notorious and we know, hey, that's harder to get like the seam to perfectly match or the grain to always run in one direction. This may require that you need to bring in one more slab. You're hoping it's a 1 slab job, but guess what? It needs to be a 2 slab job. Or you're hoping it's a 2 slab, it needs to be a 3 slab just to make those seams perfect. But for us, depending on the material you pick, like the color you have up right now, a beautiful quartzite nuage, that's definitely a pricier stone. But really, majority of the time, like the material is such a small part of the cost. It's really all the fabricating and all the technology that we use to do that. Like not all shops might have the same technology to do the slab layouts that Paul showed you. That took years of honing our practices and actually creating our own special practices behind the scenes where we can do those slab layouts so efficiently. We do that for every single job that goes through our shop. But if you'd like, you can also be a part of that process, and we send JPEGs to you before cutting, and that always happens before cutting. So you make sure you're happy with the pattern flow before cutting, right? So you don't end up like this photo here.
Absolutely. And images like this one or this one, these are things that would just drive me crazy after install. So definitely be careful of who you pick to do your installation, your fabricator, and you might as well make sure you pay good money, or it's money well spent. So it costs a bit more to get someone who's established and has technology to be able to prevent, or I guess more than prevent a problem, it's ensure, you know, a great execution of the install, right? And there's a variety of things to consider there. And I guess while we're showing some of these images, I would say that we'll quickly talk a bit about when you have problems with your install. So, and I'll show things that are pretty typical out there. So here's a seam that maybe over time it's split, it's dirtied. You know, there's another one that's cracked again. So these are things that are repairable. And I had a great series of photos to show about that, but there's some here. This is a different type of issue altogether, whereas they didn't build up the cabinetry to make sure that it's level. So they came to install the two slabs, and you can see you have an issue. This should have been shown at the start of our show, where we talked a bit about preparing for the countertop installers, but there's a lot of things to consider when you are putting in your new top, or you get a seam done, and is the seam done well? Like, those are things that, like, you know, like I should mention, in granite, that stuff's pretty easy to repair for the most part. I've also had some quartz tops, though, that we've damaged over the years and been able to repair. And I remember one time we were doing a quartz install, a very white quartz countertop. And one of my cleaners was on site doing the final clean, and her ladder fell over and chipped the edge profile of the counter. And I was stressing because I was worried about, like, this was like $7,000 of countertops, and whites can be hard to match sometimes. So in the end, they were able to repair it. So it's something to consider. If you do have a bad looking seam like that, then I would say you should get a hold of Urban Granite, talk to them about doing a repair for you. I've seen them work magic on my sites before.
Awesome.
We talked a bit about pricing of the slabs, and I want to talk about edge profile for a second, because edge profile can have a big impact on price. Okay, so these slides I'm showing now, they're kind of cropped funny, but this would be considered a standard edge profile. And I'll show you a few slides you sent. Maybe we can talk a bit about why one edge profile costs more than other, which are the more popular ones nowadays. So I'll pass to you the mic on this one.
Totally. Okay, so with these standard edges, the one on the very top, the 200, the flat edge, is by far the most popular. Like, like maybe 10 years ago when I was working in the industry, you know, a lot of people got the flat edge, the 200. A lot of people got the 202, the half bull nose, and a lot would get the 204, the bevel. But over the past, I'd say at least like 3 to 4 years, it's like everybody wants that flat edge. I think it's just a clean look, very contemporary. When you do that flat edge, we can even do a sharper point on your corners, less radius, you know? And it just seems, I think that contemporary look is just way more popular nowadays with people. So by far that one's most popular. Any of those standard edges for us, we would price the same. When you go into these designer edges, you know, these can really enhance the look of a space. You know, I've done the 250 often, where someone's trying to pull off a more vintage vibe, or a more decorative, ornate look as well. The 214, it's like a really deep bevel, and I've seen clients do that in like a really super ultra modern kind of vibe. So, and then the 254, that's brand new for us. It's really neat. We call it the shark nose. It just looks so thin on the edge, even though it is a thick slab. Very beautiful, very modern. So why these designer edges go up in price is because we do the edges on a machine, which actually routers the edge. So the standard edges, that they get routed really fast. Like, the machine just goes back and forth, you know, until it's polished and it's done. And that's a shorter amount of time than it routering out these edges. These edges just take a lot more time to machine that detail and router it out, go back and forth. It's hours more, you know? So everything like that involves more shop time does get more expensive. So one thing at Urban Granite, I know we price those still pretty competitively. We just add more per linear foot just of the edge that is needing the edging, you know? So it's not like a grand total huge percentage that it goes up, but it does definitely go up a bit. So
to give kind of point of reference, like we're doing a project now with you guys at Urban Granite. and the client had picked one of the designer edges. And the difference in price point, and this is for a fairly large kitchen with a large island, a fair bit of top, so it's kind of relative to how much top you have, but the edge profile had about a $1,200 impact on the total cost of the countertop. So that might be something that's worth every penny to you if you want a very specific look. Or, personally, I would be sticking with the standard edge, not because of the price. I just like that clean look. I'm not interested in a more fragile edge because I have young kids and they're like animals sometimes, but, or I don't be maybe careless in the kitchen. So those are things to consider. We showed the waterfall edge earlier on that nice matched countertop, and we can talk a bit about what goes into a miter.
Absolutely. Okay, so with a miter, like you're seeing in this picture here, the countertop slab then gets adhered to the panel. This picture is talking about doing a miter edge, and then the ones Paul's referring to is that actually being a full panel that goes all the way down to the floor. So either way, we're doing this angle cut, which takes more time in our shop to do an angle cut on the one piece, the top, and then again an angle cut on the edge piece, right? So that's going to make your thick edge. And so there's an extra cut happening there. Instead of just the one cut to cut the edge, now we're cutting twice because we're cutting the piece that's going to adhere together. Yeah, and then we just sandwich it together like you saw in that picture. And that happens in our shop. With very strong adhesives, and that actually sets for a day or more. So that's a seam basically. The type of seam that is used for a miter is actually like the strongest seam we could ever create because of the way it sets for so long in our shop before it gets to site. So like how you see on this beautiful island picture here where they did a 2.5-inch miter edge. That's the top piece. It has an angle cut. The edge piece has an angle cut. They sandwich together with lots of glue in there. And then after it's been adhered, that edge gets polished. So that's more labor that happens to polish it. And we also fill the whole bottom with wood. So the whole entire piece is now 2.5 inches. Mm-hmm. It's not like it drops down at the front, but the inside is hollow or something. It's actually all 2.5 inches. So that whole slab now is just 2.5 inches, and it's going to sit right on top of your cabinets.
Yeah, and it can give nice contrast here to where you have your island now with a 2.5-inch miter. It makes it look like a very thick slab. And then they have 1.25 back on the perimeter top. So it makes a nice contrast. It can really, kind of class up your kitchen. Let's talk about, we'll give last call on our giveaway item. So we've got this beautiful limestone cutting board. Here it is. It's probably, I would say, 30 pounds or so, custom made. Comes with this bottle of wine. So our skill testing question today was what's a harder surface between quartz or granite? So enter your answer in the comments, and then we'll do our random draw at the end of the show. And maybe you'll win yourself this beautiful cutting or charcuterie board and bottle of wine.
Have some very classy charcuterie nights or picnics.
Absolutely. I guess briefly, let's talk about thickness of your countertops, because we showed this one image that showed kind of a contrast between a 2.5-inch miter and 1.25 inch. What's standard, and what do you see changing now in the trends within availability and what's becoming more popular?
Yeah, so this trend has actually changed a lot. So this picture is very common what people do when they do a miter edge. Often they don't miter all the counters. They miter the islands to make the islands this wow piece in the home that draws more attention. And the contrast, like Paul said, is just beautiful to see side by side, One thing my colleagues have been pointing out is like that 2.5-inch miter thickness. That's like what we were always mitering islands to. And lately, it seems like clients are asking for 3 inches, 4 inches. Yeah, so we're really surprised, like, wow, they're wanting it thicker and thicker. But what we've seen trending for just your standard counter, which is 3 centimeters, that 1.25 inches, we're suddenly seeing people like thinner. So the 2 centimeters or even less. So this picture here is showing 2 centimeters, which is 3/4 of an inch for the island and for the perimeter counter. And it's just a little sleeker when it's thin. Thin has been trending in Europe for like 5 years. We've been hearing about it from reps. We've been seeing it in design magazines and such. However, it was hard to imagine for a long time that that would gain popularity here because it seemed like everyone just wanted thicker and thicker. But now, the past, I'd say 2 years, we've seen the trend hit Edmonton. So especially this year. So clients are wanting the 2 centimeters. Back in the day, when clients would get the 2 centimeter, the thinner counter, they were typically just trying to save money. It's a few $100 cheaper on the slab, a little bit cheaper on the labor because it's lighter, easier to work with. So that was why they were picking it. And now we have clients coming in saying, I want the thin one. Is that more expensive? Like, they just want it. It's not based on price. So luckily, with quartz, when you go from 3 cm to 2 cm, you're saving some money. And same with dekton. And another thing that's changing that is, I think, the technology and the innovations these companies that we work with have. So quartz companies have figured out now, a couple really big brands like Caesar Stone and Silestone, they've figured out how to make quartz slabs that are only 1.2 centimeters, so a little over ½ an inch. And then with dekton, it doesn't go thicker than 2 centimeters. 2 centimeters is the thickest, and we sell it all the time for kitchens. So just to show you how popular that 2 centimeter edge is now, just the thinner edge. But with dekton, you can get it in 1.2 centimeters, in 0.8, like 8 mil, and it's a very sleek, modern look. We even found a granite company, Polycore, who's the only Canadian like granite quarry owner that I know of. They own many quarries in Canada. They actually have found the technology to extract natural stone slabs that are only 1 centimeter thick.
Wow.
So just
That
to
would
keep
be
in
good.
mind,
Those,
thinners in.
yeah, those very thin slabs too would be good for an application like you see here, whereas you're using that for large surface area coverings, whether it's in your bathroom or feature walls, and you wouldn't put it on a fireplace if it was a quartz product, but there's lots of things you could do with this. You could build furniture pieces out of it. Like I had some great fireplaces to show that, and one you done for us last year, which was a nice miter design on a gas fireplace, but unfortunately the image isn't showing up where I expected it to be. So
yeah, but you're exactly right. Thinner is great. So this picture happens to be porcelain slabs. So it's another innovation in our industry. Like granite fabricators are cutting porcelain because porcelain's coming in big sheets now that we can cut and do really great things like this. So in this picture, we've done the walls around the tub, the floors, even the shower walls, and thinner is definitely better for things like that. When you're doing like full wall applications, we know if we're pricing like a thicker slab, like your average 3 cm slab, and we're trying to do like a full wall, that's going to take a lot more effort because of how heavy it is. So the lighter it is, we can save a lot on the labor. It's so much easier to do. And so that's going to help you be able to pull off these like magnificent looks at a more like friendly to your budget way to do it, you know?
We got a question here from Capensis Metalwork. If there's a question to answer for the draw, I don't know if you missed last call or not, but here's the question. Which is the harder surface, quartz or granite? So enter that in your comments. I hope you're not too late for the cutoff. The prize is a beautiful charcuterie board. It's limestone custom made. Let's see if I can pick it up again. Show it to you.
Getting your workout today, lugging that board.
There it is, the beauty. And a bottle of red wine. There is the prize. We should have a winner usually around 155, 157. We have the winner announced here. So quickly before we wrap it up, I want to show a couple things. So this product, can you tell me a bit about it, please?
Yeah, so this is a natural quartzite slab. So in the beginning, when I was talking about how the price of a slab can go up and up and up, and some of them are translucent, that's what this is. So this was extracted from the earth just like this. It's totally natural. It just happens to be translucent. In this picture, we were holding it up and just in front of the daylight to show the client what it looks like with light coming through. But what most clients will do when they pick a slab like this is they'll get LED panels and they'll backlight the islands or the backsplash or their wall feature, whatever it is, and it ends up absolutely magnificent. Like if that's how much daylight, if that's what you're seeing just from daylight, imagine with LED panels behind it. LED panels is definitely the way to go. You can pull that effect off with string lighting too. We've seen clients do it, but LED panels is definitely more the way to go, because then you just get even light throughout. That's a lot brighter. We always tell clients, like, we can provide the LED panels. We have a very high quality supplier, like in this project here, which is actually a very recent job. We did a small bar countertop in someone's home, but look how magnificent, you know, with the backsplash and the counter, with the LED panels. That's the effect you want. All you see is the light coming through. You don't see like the panels itself, like boxes and squares behind, right? Or string like behind. So we always tell clients, even if you're not going to order the LED panels from us, that's totally fine. But let us help you pick the LED panel sizes. Like just run your order past us so we can make sure you get this effect where it's just the light coming through. I mean, I've seen some like fancy bars around town where all you see is the panel with the light, and everyone there's like, we love our bar, and in my head I'm like, that could be better. So yeah, this is the way you want it to look. Yeah,
absolutely. All right, well, if you have any questions, now's a good time for people to hit them in the comments. We'd be happy to answer your questions for you. I see we had a comment from YEG Infill talking about thin is definitely more European. However, all of our California projects still are 3 inches thick, built up, and still looks modern yet luxurious. Depends on the style of the house. So very true. And it'll always come down to personal preference, right? Ideally, when we renovate your space, we're renovating to suit your style, your needs, right? So trends, yes, it's good to keep your eye on the trends and make sure you're not putting in a blue toilet. But at the same time, you want to make sure that, you know, you make it to suit yourself and your own interests, right?
Yeah, and nowadays, like with everything, like style is so wide open, right? Like showing you thin, showing you thicker, like 3 inches. Like it's just, there's so many different options out there. There's something for everyone. What's speaking to you? Like we can't tell you what speaks to you. We can definitely tell you what we're seeing and give you tons of inspiration.
Absolutely. So if you're planning a renovation of just your countertops, you want to replace your tops, then I encourage you to get a hold of Urban Granite. They're a great resource. Clearly, Isha is incredibly knowledgeable about all things to do with it, and they have a great showroom, and they'll help to steer you in the right direction. You can talk about what, you know, how are you maintenance-wise? Are you up to the task of having a softer top? Do you want something truly unique, or are you okay with something that's maybe more mass-produced? Those are things they can help you with directly. If your renovation involves a complete kitchen renovation or a complete bathroom and there's multiple moving parts, then you probably should get a general contractor involved. You can certainly reach out to us. We'll be happy to help out. If you have questions about things to avoid, certainly call us. But here on the screen is Urban Granite's contact details. So hit them up, follow them on Instagram, check out their work. They do beautiful stuff. Absolutely. They're a great resource for you in general. Isha, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was so fun.
I'm glad
and thanks to all
out.
the viewers for watching. Yeah, this went so smooth. No technical difficulties this time at all.
Yeah, well, you know, you just never know. The live show, you never know what you're going to get. So again, if you're planning a bigger project, please give us a call. I'm happy to give you my advice. If you're planning to GC your own job, you know, you might not be aware of how many moving parts there are. Like we started off at the start of the show, there's things to be aware of that could impact the end result, right? So your backsplash tile, your plumbing fixtures, the way your cabinets are. If you're planning to change to a farmhouse sink, that potentially right there, that choice requires some modifications to your cabinetry. If you're going from over drop-in sink to undermount, again, you'll have differences within your plumbing. So reach out. You need to talk to an expert. Make sure that you do this properly and don't catch yourself in the middle where you've got your countertop installers there to install something and it's not going to work because you need to now modify your cabinet or something to that extent. So
yeah, plan ahead, especially if you have older cabinets. That's another thing too. Like if they're much older, a lot more going on with how sizes were back then to how they are now. And even if you're just doing your counter, you might still need a contractor to give you a hand to prepare for us. So
true
yeah.
enough. The winner, we should announce, Braden Plitt is the winner.
Woo!
So congratulations, Braden. You've won yourself this lovely charcuterie board. Here it is.
Made with love from Urban Granite. Hope you enjoy.
Betcha. And you got yourself a bottle of wine. And I'll be sure to wipe these down for you before you come and get them. So I'll send you a message after the show, Braden, and you can come make arrangements to pick it up from our office. Isha, thank you so much. Great show. Thanks for joining me, and thanks for all you who tuned in to watch. We will be back next week. Next week we'll be talking about, what is next week? Next week is Urban Timber will be on the show talking about reclaiming and repurposing material. Thanks a lot. Thanks for tuning in. Renovation Live. We'll see you Tuesday, 1 o'clock.